and making jokes, forgetting on their knees to pray. Just so young with all their dreams and years thrown away in the rubble by the hatred scared white men. December in the year is 63, George Wallace defied. Said make your school doors open for a child in black and white. Wallace pinched up both his fists and he called out for pride. Down in the Birmingham jail, down in the Birmingham jail, had a chance to live your life without love. In the Birmingham jail.
For putting the paneling up on the wall, I'm using these power head screws, using 1 1/4, and I actually found some 1 1/2 inch or a little bit more bite into the studs. But the cool thing about these is, first of all, they're self-tapping, so there's no pre-drilling needed for this. They've got really positive Roberts drive or square head drive, and this big surface area on the head. So I can drive this in so that this comes up real flush and it really pulls the paneling tight to the studs. What's cooler though is there's a little bit of tooth on the underside of the head. So if I just go a couple more twists of the screwdriver, I can actually recess these. And here you can see the fastener in place. It's screwed in and it's nice and flush. It's really a very cool design. These are often used in kitchen cabinet installation where you want that really strong surface area of the head to pull the cabinet up tight.
Just like hardwood, sometimes you need to finesse plywood to get just that right fit. And that's what a hand plane's for. Right in this inside corner, I ran into a spot where it was a little bit heavy as it butted up against the garage door, and that hand plane got it to fit perfectly.
Okay, I've started putting up the plywood on the lower section of the far wall there, and you can see that's where the dust collector is now going to live. I'm able to still put a bit of a lumber rack up high, and I may still use these shelf brackets for just miscellaneous things. So here at the top of the soffit, I'm going to run a piece of contrasting hardwood over here to cover up this soffit structure. And I'm just going to take a piece of my same plywood and put it up here against this face. Now I have to create this miter angle. I don't have to, but I don't want to have the exposed plywood edge. So how do I capture this angle? It's safe to assume that this is not 90 degrees. So I'll set my bevel gauge here to capture this angle, and no assumptions can be made here, so I just want to double check and make sure I've got the same angle down at the bottom, and I do. First thing I need to do now that I've captured this angle is bisect this so that I can create this mitered angle. I'll come up here to the edge of my plywood and strike the line at the angle we captured off the wall. Now I'm going to grab a compass and just set to a random dimension. What I want to do is strike an arc along my 2 axis points. Then without changing the compass, strike a line where this arc intersects the X and Y axis. Oops, I didn't go far enough there. And now where these 2 arcs connect, I can just take a straight edge and connect from the origin down here to that intersection point. And I have now bisected that angle, and I can take my bevel gauge and capture that angle. Lock it in, and I'm now set to go. Just to make things a little bit more difficult, but I think also typical in home construction like this, I cannot assume that this line here is plumb. And in fact, if you look close, you can see that it angles out ever so slightly. So I certainly have to cut this mitered angle, but it's going to end up being compound because it cups out. So what I'm going to do, I've held this in place and I've just traced the line on the inside here. And you can more clearly see there is a slight angle where it splays out to the lower right. So I penciled in my angle on the top and came down and drew the angle in on the bottom, and then just connect those lines on the face. And this is how I'll create my compound angle. If you go back to the saw tote video I did, or not the saw tote, the tool tote video I did, it's the same process. Draw your angle on the edges and connect the lines on the face to get that angle there. The beauty of hand saws is now that I can see this line, I can saw to it regardless of the crazy compound angle it's created. See, I've deviated a little bit on the far side of the cut, but I deviated away from my line, so it'll be much easier to clean that up. Right on my line, so I think coming in from the other side is actually going to clean that up, make that miter almost perfect. So I can see a little hint of a pencil line right there. I can see my pencil line on the end. I can see my pencil line there. Pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up with a block plane. Bring my piece to bear and it will nicely cover up the notch here, and I've got a nice angle to match up to my long piece. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this end cap in, and I'll probably sneak a couple of screws in from the inside here, but I want this to be fixed in place, and I can create my matching angle on the long piece off of this kind of known fixed variable. So I may have this angle, the miter angle, captured, and I was able to set this piece in place and trace it. Well, the mating piece can't quite do that. So I do need to bring another bevel gauge to bear and capture that vertical angle here. Then I can use this, both of these, to lay out the angle on my mating piece. So here's my mating piece. I've taken that vertical angle and transferred it down the face, then used my bevel angle here on the top and the bottom, and literally just connect the dots on the opposite face. Now I have a compound angle laid out that I just need to saw. Let's bring the piece to bear, and that is a pretty damn good fit for the type of construction work that I'm doing, and considering that I'm going to put a cap over top of this, so this will really be invisible, but it meets up nicely along the edge, so I'm going to go ahead and install that.
Of course, now that it's installed, I need to kind of round over the corners because this is a really sharp corner, and I can just see myself bumping into it and cutting myself every time I come over here. Okay, well, I'm at a bit of a standstill here. Continuing to cut panels to progress with the lower wall here, but I can't really demolish these cabinets yet until I can move this tool cabinet and actually hang it right over here, kind of centered underneath that pipe. Well, this panel, as you probably can see, is not attached and it's not flush to the wall because back inside there is a junction box that is too thick to go behind the panels. So I'm going to go with a special narrow junction box that fits between 1.5 or behind 1.5 furring strips. Problem is there's a bunch of other stuff that needs to happen that needs to be moved over. I want to add in a couple of sockets, and at the same time I need to add a 220 outlet and a 220 circuit on my panel that's going to go over on this wall. I'm going to put in a 110 and a 220 either in the same junction box or right next to one another to power the dust collector and the 20-inch planer to go right next to it. So I need to call an electrician to do that. I could probably do it myself, but I'd rather have it done really, really well. So I'm kind of stuck waiting for the electrician before I can go too much further. So I'm going to call it quits from here. Next time, I will finish putting up the paneling. I'll hang the tool cabinet and begin demolishing the last bit of my stationary cabinets. See you then.